You are about to watch the #1 motivational show in the world. Learn how to chase your dreams without giving up.
You believe in yourself and you love yourself. And you know that you have all the tools to do it, regardless of whatever the collective conscious opinion is outside of your opinion. Sometimes you have to have that level of boundary for yourself, not to care about what the opinions of others are that are not serving you or aligning with who you are, because that simply means that you need to outgrow whatever collective it is that you're currently around.
Yeah, yeah. Yo, I love that, honestly. And I could tell you believe in manifestation, right?
100%.
Whatever that I say I am, I can achieve just what I want to. Do you believe? Do you believe? Yeah. Do you believe? Do you believe? Yeah, yeah.
Follow Dino as he chases his dreams around the world. We believe in you. It's time to believe in yourself.
I want to introduce y'all to Dylan Gonzalez. What's poppin'?
Hola, ¿qué pasa?
I am lit right now, yo. So, let everybody know for like, of course, I know a lot about you. Let everybody know for people who don't know who you are. I would say you're an Instagram influencer, Las Vegas celebrity. You went to University of Kansas and UNLV. You're an activist. You're also an artist. I know so much. Tell us about you.
Okay, so you know the deal. So that is my brand. That's my official brand. It's you know the deal. The artist, the athlete, the activist. I really do a little bit of everything. When people ask me, Dylan, like, what do you do for a living? I usually just tell people I'm a venture capitalist because honestly, it just like kind of encompasses everything, like to be fair, because I like to invest time, energy, resources, all that stuff into the things and the people that I ultimately believe in. And it was that foundation that I think kind of helped me create a community and a brand for myself and a namesake. And really, I'm on a mission to be the example of what I want to see in the world, and through my passions and through my crafts, I hope to inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And so me, I was in high school in about 2010 to 2014. I eventually committed to the University of Kansas, and I don't know if you were there at the moment, but people
No
were talking
way.
about you there. Yeah, we're gonna talk more about that. But people were talking about like you were the biggest name as far as yeah, at University of Kansas. And
That's
I need
right.
to know this, and the people need to know this. When you meet people in person, do you try to figure out if they know you already, or do you just like try to see what their vibe is? Let us know about this, because you've been popping for a long time.
I've been popping my whole life.
Yeah.
I've been popping my whole life. You know, people just started getting put on at a certain point in my life. And I think that the times and the circumstances um, kind of met me at a certain part of my life where, you know, ultimately God and the divine decided this is where you're ready to be seen by the world, to become well known, and really start, I guess, that journey of what it looks like to be somebody that has a prolific name and who's a prolific figure in their industries. Kansas was like my first experience where I really was met. It was like you would think it was like overnight success, where it's
Mhm.
like boom, all of a sudden you just kind of hit the lottery and your entire life changes. And it was the fusion of both playing basketball and social media that really set those floodgates like loose and open. And I'll say, with where I'm at today in my life, I can pretty much tell within 8 seconds or less whether or not somebody's familiar with me, uh, kind of regardless of whatever psychological game that they approach that they want to take. I'll say approach. Regardless of whatever psychological
Yes.
approach anybody else wants to take, I can usually tell. And what I always just appreciate is when people really show me real love. And if they don't know who I am, I usually get to have like, I guess, a little more of uh, hmm, a time just kind of like not messing with people, but they always find out eventually. So it's like I get to kind of have a time just
Yeah.
without the preconceptions, without any preconceived notions. But usually, what'll happen if somebody introduces themselves to me or approaches me who doesn't want to say they know me because they don't want to come off as a fan, and I usually appreciate the effort of consideration there because I really don't like fans. I think fans are for everybody. I think fans are haters in disguise. So it's like
Okay.
you're either a supporter of me or like a believer in me or even just a respectful observer. Like those are the ones that I'll like entertain, I'll show love back, I'll appreciate. But outside of that, I don't usually entertain like people that be on some like kind of fan like hater energy. So when people don't approach me like that, I don't feel any type of way. It usually takes me having to like say something about myself, whether it be my name or I'm a professional basketball player or I sing or I have a twin, like some kind of distinguishing quality that they associate with me that then turns that light bulb on to be like, oh yeah, like this is Dylan Gonzalez, like, and then they'll usually confess to me.
So they have to approach you with the right mindset. And it's crazy. Just for people who don't know, you don't just have a million people who see you on social media. It's in real life, of course, because you've been
Yeah.
ESPN, like as an athlete, you've been on the top station. So I have a lot of people in high school who watch me, and I need to know, when you were in high school, where was your mindset at? Were you like, I'm chasing my dreams right now? And were you popping in Vegas when you were in high school, talking about like 14 to 17? Like, where was
Yeah.
your head at there compared to now?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know, in high school, I was really dealing with so much. Like you have to really understand where I came from and how I was programmed and like what I went through to really understand why I operate the way I do today, why I am the way I am today, why the things that matter to me matter to me. Because in high school, that was probably like the worst, like one of the worst times in my life. And then college was like the sequel to that.
I feel you.
Because I'm really like an introverted person. Like I'm expressive and I have all of these very colorful, creative, bold, vulnerable versions of myself. But I only really like to show those versions of myself to people I trust and to people who don't judge me but seek to continue to understand me on deeper levels. And in my community, I was a black sheep, like in every way, shape, or form. And that really comes down to being a mixed black woman in America and coming from all of these different backgrounds, which essentially set me up to have all types of different like mental health problems. And really, that's just what it is today. Like the culture today, the kids today, they all suffer in all these different ways. And I talk about it all the time with my team, how the generation today suffer with severe identity crises. And mind you, the adults and everybody else like that, after they hit their, we'll call it midlife crisis, but it can happen at any time in your life. It really just depends on how much life you've lived, how many experiences you've had. And a lot of people who have been here before, like the generations coming up, sometimes settle into a bit of what I would consider arrogance, just because they're very entitled to the time they've spent here. But really, wisdom doesn't equate to the amount of time you've been here. You acquire wisdom from the amount of experiences you have and your ability to learn from them and your ability to apply whatever lesson it was that you had within those experiences. And today we live in like the popcorn culture of technology, of expedited experiences and instant gratification. So we get to have all this access to all these different things that we get to see, and we get to ultimately have a version of the experience of. And for me, like growing up in high school, my identity, it was the same crisis. However, I was one of the people, because like the time change happened like boom, like I'm a 90s baby, right? But ultimately, like the time shifts, like from after really the 2000s era of how quickly the world changed and developed, was really, again, like that overnight celebrity, like night and day changes happened and were made. But the same problems within society still ensued, the same problems in our humanity and the same problems in our spiritual identity, which is why we're all just confused out here as to like what we're supposed to believe, what paths we're supposed to follow, who we're supposed to be in this world, and if we even want to participate at all. And for me, I was going through like severe depression during my high school years that I pretty much had to internalize because I refused to like be on pills or go to therapy, and for reasons that are really valid to my personal experience with that, because I just saw, like, I grew up with a father who was a cardiologist and a mother who was in medical skills. So I got to see a lot of things that like most people don't get to see, they don't get to have access to. And I also had the privilege of getting a certain level of education that allowed me into this higher information that was once gate kept from people that look like me, or even people who are have the gender mechanics that I have as a woman. And I personally look at that and I was like, in where I'm at today, I found my purpose, I found my responsibility in this life for what all of those experiences were through high school, through college. But honest to goodness, my mentality at that time was I was in like a pure survival mode. Like I was the only one other than my twin sister who looked like me. And mind you, we're still two individual people. So I had an identity crisis very early being a twin, because I was always merged together. We were always merged together as one person. And I think that my sister was a little more compatible with the system, and I was a little more problematic with the system because I was inquisitive about why things worked the way they did, about why I had to be forced down certain roads or certain paths because of whatever demographics I fit into. She kind of was just the version of herself of, she just made everything bright and happy and beautiful. It was kind of like the sun and the moon. Like that's kind of how our dynamic was. But because she was more compatible with the world, I was kind of forced to always assimilate to her qualities as a person, even though it wasn't actually true to who I was as a person. So it wasn't until like 21, like when I hit my 20s, that I really had that like crack, like where I snapped, where I had my midlife or quarter life century crisis, where I finally had to like find myself and do the diligence of what it was going to take to get the answers I was really looking for out of life, to mature, to develop and to grow and to lead. Because ultimately I know that I'm purposed in this life to be a leader. I know that as an influencer, which I actually usually hated when people called me influencer, only because I knew what influencers really were on the catfish side of things.
Sure.
And I couldn't relate to that. So I would get offended, but then I started understanding, for other people's context, for their understanding, it was something that was accurately a part of my brand and my identity. in the public sphere of things. But my mentality now versus then was to be, my mentality now is to be very intentional, always to be very intentional. My mentality then, again, was just like strictly like survive and just figure it out. And in the survival mode, you can only last in survival mode for so long, because you're not supposed to have to last in survival mode. Like, you're supposed to be able to live in peace, and you're supposed to be able to live in that serenity. When you don't have that, that's when you start becoming ill, whether it be physically or mentally or spiritually. It all is going to manifest itself in some kind of reality that we ultimately don't really want to have to experience. For me, like, dealing with the stuff I did at that time, I understand. Like, you can't, I don't blame myself for not being more intentional then, or for not like trying harder in certain areas, because I understand that it was never really written to be that way. And I ultimately was ignorant. Like, you don't know what you don't know. But it's once you do know, you do better. And I just created a standard and a precedence of excellence for myself, and what that looked like across the board. And I committed to it once I had that awakening, once I came into that level of awareness. And it's a journey, it's a process. It looks unique on all of us. I think that, again, for me, I just want to make sure I'm always honest and transparent with who I am. And I've always been that way. But sometimes I've had to learn how to then create boundaries and spaces that are safe for me to continue to be that way.
Yes.
Because it's not always safe for you to just be all of who you are in every single room that you are essentially called to. You have to figure out why you're called to that room, who you're supposed to be, and who you're supposed to get to know.
Yes. And
And
I
yeah,
can tell that you really do trust the journey just by like seeing how you've progressed in college and outside of college. And I also see that I don't want to call you like a coach, but you do have like the feel of like online coaching as well, of course, because you're motivating people. So I want to know, what is self-care to you specifically? Because to me, self-care is just me going to the beach every single day, writing in my affirmation journal, and listening to music. Those three
I
things. But
love that.
you may get deeper than me, but so let us know, what is it to you?
Well, very simply, self care is self love. You see, to me, self care means ultimately taking care of myself as if I were my own child. And in the way that I see how I will love my own children, because I do have some like informal little munchkins who I either mentor or who I'm uh, like a significant part of their life. And in this experience of secondary motherhood, I realized just the level and lengths that I would go to for my child, to take care of them, to see them succeed, to make sure that they're like doing things right. And I'm like, respect is a minimum for me. So another um, self term that I would equate to self care is self respect. And self respect is earned through your actions, it is earned through your level of commitment to whatever it is that you are essentially creating foundationally for yourself, in your values and in your integrity and your character as a person. You see, all the figures that we see out here in the world today that we either look up to or look down upon are examples for us to see where our own moral compass lies, to see where our own standards lie, and then to ultimately learn from others how to find the direction for our own lives of refining all of those things. And it takes a level of discipline to have self care. For me, there's three fundamental existences when it comes to the human experience.
Give us the game.
This is something you can actually learn um, in something I have coming up. I have coined um, my online coaching, as you called it. It's called lifestyle transformation training, and it's more than just working out and like doing the physical labor. That's only one of the fundamental levels of the human existence. Is the physical, is the body. Then we have the divine. We have our higher self, our spirit, where it is that ultimately our energy and our life force source comes from. And for my personal belief system, we all come from one source. But that source is made up of a collection of pieces that make it one piece. And the more you know yourself, and the more you get to know yourself, where you're from, your bloodline, your family tree, your history, the more you know these things, the more you can find out about your source and all the different things that you've been connected to. And where you're either gonna pick up the torch and keep it, pushing, or maybe you switch things up based on wherever your lineage, has led you to the discovery of. And I feel like a lot of people are cut off from knowing their spiritual self, from understanding who they are. And it's actually like a fact, like we have been poisoned, like in our water, in our air, and all these different things
Yeah.
that cut off very, very imperative parts of our physical body, like our pineal gland, which is a gland that essentially helps us connect to our higher self, to our source, to these dimensions around us that are beyond the physical molecular capacity of understanding and really defining clearly through language to this day. And then we have the bridge that connects those two fundamental pieces. Then we have the bridge, which is the third piece, which is the mind, the consciousness, the ability to go in and out of those worlds, the ability to connect them. Your mind, your brain is essentially the control panel. And your brain, we know that like the human experience today, we have been limited to only utilizing like basically the bare minimum percentage of our brains that we can use.
Yeah.
And ultimately, there's so much more that we are capable of, but it really just comes down to our belief systems not aligning with our truest reality, with our truest potential, because you really are only limited by that of your own imagination. I believe that's a Walt Disney quote. He's somebody who I really looked up to as a child just because of the impact that he had on my life through the works that came from what we know as Disney. So, yeah, I mean, I think that self-care to me looks like making sure that I always cover my three fundamental values, my three fundamental bases with my mind, my body, and my spirit. I've ultimately designed a program and a lifestyle that's tailored to every individual, but I've designed a lifestyle that I follow, that I can maintain and nurture all of those relationships so that I continue to grow within them, just like the gaming system, just up and up.
So on a daily basis, obviously self-care is important to you, but on a daily basis, what is something specifically that you're doing to self-care? Like without obviously giving the game in your program, like is getting your nails done, maybe your hair done? Because I feel like people who may follow you, may look at influencers and say like all she does is probably like get her hair done every day and sit in front of the mirror and talk
I
about
know,
how
right?
she looks
I
good
actually
and
wish
all
I could do
this.
more of that. I wish I could do more of that. But that's not actually like those aren't my priorities. Like if people came into a day in Dylan's life and they really saw like the organized chaos of what it is, they would be like, "Holy shit! I never would have, excuse my language, but I never would have expected this to be like what it takes to run this circus, like to make all of this happen." I would say for self-care, there are, if I had to absolutely pick like just like one thing out of all the things that I do that's absolutely essential, critical, crucial, have to do it, can't skip it, no matter, like cannot skip this. Um, it would be my prayer meditation hours.
Okay.
Because usually during those hours, I do um, I multitask sometimes, but really it's dedicated to stillness. So sometimes if I'm multitasking, for example, I'll like be grounding at the same time. So grounding is a form of, well, really healing and then ultimately connectivity with the earth and the world. So I will be barefoot. I'll go out in the grass, in the dirt, in the rocks, whatever will like connect me with nature. Like low key, get a little like like low key acupuncture, which is also nice. But yeah, I pretty much just dig my feet into the ground. Sometimes I will be in various poses, just depending on what kind of healing pose or healing maneuver for the body that my body needs for that day. And I pretty much love to do it during the day and during the night. I like to absorb both of those times. So I will do them twice a day for at least at the
Twice a day
very
outside?
outside, even in the cold, even in the, I'll dig my feet in the snow. But if for at least 15 minutes has to be for me personally, like I can't do any less than 15 minutes. And if you're a really busy person, you should do at least 2 hours. If you got a lot going on, you need like more time to meditate.
And I've heard of these things. My best friend actually does this. He put me on 100% to this. And I heard a lot of other people do this. So how much do you invest into this self-care of yours? Is there amount of money like that you invest? Because I feel like me personally, I've realized like I can invest money to make myself more happy sometimes and in self-care. Um, so is it the same for you or no?
Absolutely. I think that when it comes down to prioritizing self care, I look at it as a long term investment because you have to think about it like you're either going to set yourself up for two different paths, and this is just as black and white as it gets. You're either going to disregard your health because that's what self care is about. It's about not only maintaining your health, but improving your health so that no matter what kind of craziness this world gets hit with, you will ultimately be able to be immune to it all. And if you don't, and that's not just like again our immune systems, our physical wellness. It's a mind game out here. It's psychological warfare. Okay, so that is also connected with our spiritual and our mental health. So when it comes down to maintaining and improving our health, you have to look at it as an investment. And if you're not willing to invest right now, you're going to pay for it later. And this is actually just a scientific, mathematical, objective fact. If you look at anybody who is in the generations ahead of these upcoming generations, tell me one figure that you look at or have heard from or have spoken to that is not having to pay for a consequence in their older age for wherever it was that they were deficit in taking care of and nurturing their health right now. And sometimes it wasn't even their fault. Sometimes it was circumstantial. There's systematic, all types of prejudice going on out here. So sometimes it's not even their fault. It's just a matter of the times. But ultimately, what they have to do now is decide to start now, because I'm a true believer in you don't have to be great at the start, but you have to start to be great. And really, time itself doesn't discriminate. But we ultimately, the more time we have on earth and the more we're met with certain disappointments and this and that, whatever, we start to fill our time with the wrong kind of energy. We start to take our focus away from being able to get on track and off this loop of ultimately manifesting our greatest fears. Because when that's what you're thinking about, then that is when you make decisions that support that, your fear. Because our belief systems, the things we believe in, are not just some religious partialities. They're not just some like life approaches. When it comes down to whatever it is that your beliefs are simply this. And I believe that, there was a doctor who said this. He's one of my favorite, but it'll come to me later. But your belief systems are simply the thoughts that you think most often. That's it. What do you think about the most? And when you actually take a second to be still and to think about the things that you think about, or that you can't get off your mind, or that you can't escape from within your mind, that will tell you exactly what it is you believe in. Are you a skeptic? Do you believe into fear? Is that why you make fear-based decisions? Fear is an altered state. Worry, uncertainty, these are altered states. You want to be in your baseline of peace. You want to be in your baseline of that, in emotional stability and security. But fear and worry and all these things aren't necessarily like these evil, horrible, bad things. You don't want to just completely avoid them. They're necessary so that we can register, digest, and process the information around why we're experiencing those things, and then what it is that we're supposed to do about it. But if you make a fear-based decision, you're going to be met with a fear-based result. You're going to manifest your greatest fears. And it's simply a shift. It's that simple. It's like so simple, but it is not easy to make a mental shift and a mental change and a mental decision to be like, I'm going to commit to my prayer hours every day. I'm going to commit to my self-discipline every day and what that looks like for me. To me, like getting my hair done, getting my nails done, all that kind of stuff, those are accessories to self-care. Those are things like, there are certain things that are absolutely necessary for me to do, like my hair care. But let me tell you, my hair care does not look like just constantly silk pressing my hair and getting all types of no, I have to do like really messy stuff with my hair for my hair journey. Like it's messy, it's tedious, it's obnoxious, it's really not cute, but it's for the overall investment that I'm trying to make in myself, in my longevity, in my ultimate growth and prosperity in life. What people have very confused out here based on the programming and the fear that is a generational curse that trickles down from generation to generation. Fear is the worst illness of them all out here, the worst disease that trickles down. The fear is that when we get older, or that when we spend more time on earth, that we just atrophy. That's like an inescapable path, is that we're just supposed to atrophy and crumble and be lesser than and be less capable. And that's actually not true. The human body was designed and built to last forever. We just don't take care of it properly on all the fundamental levels that it needs taken care of, that it needs nurturing. Really, what we were meant to do was blossom and bloom and grow like a magnificent oak or sequoia tree. Like over time, when you see trees, when you see forests, they just become more magnificent, more beautiful, more extensive, more expansive, more amazing. And it isn't unless we're talking natural disasters or the disasters of human activities that we see that taken away or that we see it look differently and in an unrecognizable fashion sometimes. But if you actually understand the science behind what the human evolution is supposed to be, you can ultimately reprogram yourself to start making the decisions that you need to make for you financially, socially,
Facts.
physically, spiritually, that align with what it is you're trying, where it is you're trying to go in your future. And if you don't condition yourself, athletes understand, if you don't condition yourself for that, you're not going to be made for it. God, the universe, the law of attraction, whatever it is, I'm telling you, it's not going to deliver or hand you anything that you're not prepared to have. It's just not. And if you do get it before you're prepared, it's going to become a disaster. You're going to be met with disaster. And if you are prepared, if you're playing it for the long game, if you're trying to understand why this life is a gift and why you were gifted it and what it is that you want, you have a responsibility to take care of yourself like you are your own child and like you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You believe in yourself and you love yourself. And you know that you have all the tools to do it, regardless of whatever the collective conscious opinion is outside of your opinion. Sometimes you have to have that level of boundary for yourself, not to care about what the opinions of others are that are not serving you or aligning with who you are, because that simply means that you need to outgrow whatever collective it is that you're currently around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yo, I love that, honestly. And I could tell you believe in manifestation, right?
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so hold up. I actually, this is mine. It's my dream journal, and it says all your dreams will come true, right? So I sell these in my
Yeah.
store, and you talked about like basically things that you tell yourself and you believe yourself. So I write down every morning I
Hey.
have the number one motivational show, and I write like I do like the 3-6-9 method, but I'll do 3 in the morning, 6 in the
Mm-hmm.
afternoon, and 9 at night, and everything that I've done it for has literally come true. And I've manifested me moving to LA this year, which is crazy. And I live
Okay.
in
Congratulations.
Beach City. And I go to the beach every single day, so it's like I understand what that is. So are you writing your dreams and goals down? What is like manifestation to you specifically?
Oh yeah, like I love writing. I'm a writer, like to my core. So there's just been all types of different ways that I get to write down. But I'll say this, I do not um ever underestimate the value and the importance of just a pen and a paper. Of just a pen and a paper. There is ancient knowledge, there is ancient truths, there are ancient, um, I guess I'll say, formulas and powers behind the essence of just the simplicity and the fundamentals of writing, of reading, and doing things in their purest form. Um, I say that because today there's so many things that we get to utilize virtually and with technology. But a lot of people, because we are still in that developmental stage, although it's been however long it's been that technology has been developing, there are still new technologies, new advancements, new upgrades and updates and things that are still in their like beta phases of just getting tested out. And ultimately, anybody who clicks yes to the user agreement signs up to be a guinea pig for the overall analytics and statistics for how this affects humanity, how it affects our physical body. Again, all these fundamental versions of humanity. That's what like scientists do. And then collectively, it's also capitalism. People are trying to figure out how they can ultimately manipulate the psychology of human beings to brainwash us into buying into whatever it is that they have an agenda for us to buy into, so that they can continue to keep power and control over us. And when you understand the importance of why certain things that are now becoming like sometimes little trendy popular moments here and there, but things that are like becoming extinct, that are becoming rare, like sitting down and really reading a hard copy of a book, or really writing with your own two hands, if you're blessed enough to be able to have your own two hands, because there are some people like who don't, if we're really talking like full inclusion here, full inclusion. So if you're blessed enough to have that, if you're blessed enough to be able to like learn these different skills with your hands, it's a connectivity, like with your nervous system. And with the way technology is right now, we're absorbing a lot of things that are we actually know to be very damaging to us, to our wiring, and to our physical bodies, and to our overall health. So there has to be a balance. There has to be a very healthy balance, because I love this world. I helped create some of the landscapes for the technological world with coding and things like that, and just intellectual properties. So I love this world. I'm passionate about this world. This world is full of endless possibilities, and what I would consider a space that is truly an equal level playing ground. However, it can still come with its own prejudices, we'll say, simply because of the lack of education around how to use them. And there are still communities that are blighted, communities that are blighted, that do not have the same kind of opportunities to access these higher levels of education and spaces to know how to even dominate them for real, for real, for real. And for me, I think that, I don't know, I find that as long as I continue to be that person in that vessel that can share this information about here's why it's important to like actually write. It's not just because, oh, it's some careless thing that we learn in school that they teach us how to do and we don't understand why. Like I remember being in high school and thinking, why am I learning this? Like,
Yeah.
like they're learning this stuff. Like I have a calculator, I have this, I have that. I don't even think at the time our teachers or anybody even really fully understood why. They just were doing what they were told to do. And that's kind of been the theme of humanity, and the theme of how we kind of all operate in this collective conscience, and how we just do what we're told to do by whatever authority is in power over us. And most of us don't really question it, at the very least, if we're capable of being content within it. And we don't try to fight it or anything like that. And for me, I want to fight all of the like misinformation and the misconceptions around what the importance, what the true deep importance is of these different things, of these different skills, and even down to like certain forms of music or certain forms of art that are now becoming obscure and just like disappearing and fading as if they never existed. Like animals, like certain animals going extinct. Like we don't understand the importance in our humanity of that, because we've lost an essence of our humanity through the capitalistic nature, through our entitlement, through our privilege, through the honestly misplacement or displacement of what it is that we value. What do we really value? I always say like money is the cheapest thing on me. And money is just a material that I have the luxury of getting to play the capitalistic game with. But it's the cheapest thing on me when it comes down to what I really bring to the table. And that came from developing myself in unconventional ways. And again, that's a part of that self-care and self-discovery, because then you figure out what's for you. You may F around and find out you're like the greatest chef of all time just through simply exploring an avenue that perhaps you never would have explored in your lifetime if you weren't trying to change your diet.
That's so crazy that you're saying that, because that's something that a lot of kids need to hear. I actually work at a high school, shout out University High School Charter. So since I work at a high school and there are a lot of high school students who need to hear what you're saying, what is advice that you would give someone who's like 16, or even yourself when you were 16, to get to where you are today or even further?
Okay, my advice is be patient, establish your boundaries early, and learn to understand your emotional intelligence system. So I say be patient because we will have all of these different things that we're influenced by in the world that should create some level of inspiration, whatever that means to you, to be a visionary of your own life and how you would like to see yourself in the world and how you would like the world to respond to you for like who it is you ultimately want to be. And we each have our own like semantics and details of what that is. Like, I want a lot of money, but I don't want to be famous. I want to help lives, but I don't want to sell my soul. Like, there's all these different things that we have within our own personal again, boundaries, values, standards, how we approach life within our own personal experience with that, our own personal approaches and beliefs with that. We all have these scales that we have to weigh and we have to look at the pros and cons of. And I would say it just comes down to taking everything day by day and doing your best and ultimately studying what works out for you and what doesn't with each decision that you make through your emotional intelligence system. And the only way that you're going to start understanding your emotional intelligence system for real, and that you're going to understand yourself and how to navigate it, is when you find moments of stillness to be able to sit
Yeah.
and reflect and to be able to help you again align with what decision you need to make. Maybe your decision is you need to study something deeper. Maybe your decision is you need to pull away from a certain relationship or social dynamic. Maybe your reflection is you need to push a little harder. You need to, get more organized, whatever. Like, it all comes down to when you sit and do that self-reflective work. And people want to overlook it because we're in this society of like just mass production and supply and demand, and how can I like get rich and live this picture perfect life. But that's like where the extent lies. It's like you get to the picture perfect point and you realize it was simply a passing moment, a passing Kodak moment, and what was really happening behind that doesn't go away. What's happening around it doesn't go away. There are still all of these things that you're going to be met with that are going to challenge you as to, do you really want what you say it is you want? Are you really authentic to who it is that you're trying to be in this life? And the only way for that to work out is for you to make decisions that align with your highest self and your highest potential. And your emotional intelligence will help you with that. We all take L's and fall on our face and have to learn hard lessons. What I've learned in mine with my versus my wins versus my losses is that there's a balance, because in your wins, it's self-gratifying. It's a proud moment. It's something that you get to take as an affirmation and confirmation of the work that you put in. And your losses are actually things that you get to learn more from. Your losses are where you get to analyze where the adjustments need to be made, or where you have things exposed to you that need to be exposed because you cannot heal what you do not reveal. So really, out of both experiences, you get a win. Out of both experiences, you get something of value. But how are you going to define it? How are you going to place it? How are you going to be the one who's like, okay, yeah, maybe I messed up here, like staying up super late or doing this. How are you going to change it? Are you going to be the one that holds you accountable? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the only one that can hold yourself accountable. Are you able to be honest with yourself? I'm having a really, messed up experience and I don't know why, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. How can I do that? You have to go within. And yeah, sometimes you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that is where growing is done, outside the comfort zone. You can't expect yourself to grow or to reach higher places and spaces in your life if you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone. And at the end of the day, in order to be someone you've never been, you're going to have to do things you've never done. And
Yeah.
one of the things that the system lacks incredibly is helping us develop our emotional intelligence system and our discernment to make the decisions that are ultimately best for us. And to also learn how to coexist peacefully and respect each other's differences as opposed to judge them.
You're speaking from experience right now, and of course you said like you've had wins and you've had losses, but obviously you've been motivated, because it's like one day you'll be at the studio, the next day you'll be at a basketball game, then you'll be at a fashion show, or like on the runway somewhere. So it's like, where is the motivation coming from? And like outside of the self-care, like, is it you hanging around maybe friends? Like, is it maybe you listening to a specific musical artist outside of what you just said, self care? Is there anything else that motivates
Yes.
you, or is it just the fact that you like what you're doing? That's why you're motivated to wake up and do that.
No, it takes much more than liking something, because we can like something and dislike something in the drop of a dime. It's deeper than that. And it's the best way. There's one thing that motivates me. There's one thing that gives me assurance, that fills me up with faith and hope and all those things. And that thing is a man, and his name is Jesus Christ. And I'll say this: I was one of those types where there wasn't one person on this planet that I had the ultimate respect for. Even Jesus. Like, I wasn't really sure if I fully believed in Jesus growing up, because it was kind of forced on me. Like, I grew up in a predominantly Christian-based community that was filled with a variety of Christian ideologies, from predominantly Mormonism to Catholic to Lutheran, and just non-denominational Christians all around. And in that space, I just like couldn't really get with it, because I'm somebody who doesn't respect hypocrites, and all I saw from the humanity from my point of view was a whole bunch of hypocrisy. Even within my own life, I couldn't figure out how to like avoid the hypocrisy, because that was just what was taught to me. And again, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was like, okay, how can I not be this? And when I had that crisis again, where I was like, well, where do we go from here? Like, can I turn my, humanity card in and just go back to nothingness? Because like, this is some BS. Like, what is this? And when I got to that point, I was met with like a real not just conversation. I was met with a real challenge, that real battle. And this kind of goes back to like the mental health stuff. I was met with like, do I want to live or do I want to die? And I always felt like life wasn't in my control, but death was. Like, if I wanted to take myself out, I had the power to do that. If I wanted to choose not to be here anymore, regardless of what anybody thought about it or tried to make me feel ashamed about or whatever, I always knew like I had a choice. And that was just within my own minuscule pigeonhole perspective of my understanding of my power. But that was just the black and white concept that I knew and understood.
Mm-hmm.
But the question of like, well, where do I go from here? Like, really, what happens? Like, there's so many different things that people tell me. And in college, I was kind of, I won't say forced, but I was divinely guided to studying um, three major texts as literature, which was the Holy Bible, the Old and New Testament, the Quran, and the Torah. So basically, the Christianity, space and beliefs, the Muslim beliefs, and Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that space where I was really like trying to understand this figure in history that was Jesus. Because I was like, well, were you even real? Like for real? Like, were you even like real? And if you were real, did you do what everybody claims you did? And as I continued to just study and do this diligence and again, align with the decisions, because I was taking my decision very seriously. I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to go to the afterlife, let me go pick a kingdom, right? So the best kingdom to me was the kingdom of heaven, which sold me on this eternal life thing. And all these things that I'm sitting here preaching now are ultimately things I discovered through the kingdom of heaven. Because really, anything that I've said is an opinion based on how humanity's technical response would or could be argumentatively. Therefore, it's just subjective to my truth and my reality. But I would argue that based on the type that it's actually objective, the things I'm saying, based on the studies I've done and the texts and the history that I have to support these things, and even the present reality and realities that are to come. So when I was getting to know Jesus, I was like, okay, Jesus, let you sit here and you say these things like, I have the same kind of power that you have. Well, let me understand what kind of power it is that you have. Let me understand what it is that you really had to do to acquire that power, to give me access to these things.
Mm-hmm.
And through each of the texts, it was consistent across each of those texts that this man came here and at the very least claimed to be capable of doing these things and so on and so forth. And everybody else just had their varying opinions around their perspective on it all. And when I got down to the simple basis of what the belief system is, which is, again, it's just the things that you choose to pour belief into. What do you want to believe? That's ultimately how most people in positions in power of authority have been capable of rewriting history, because they poured into what they wanted to believe and wanted to convince everybody else of, but just in a very malicious, egregious fashion. One that I don't personally agree with. So that's why I'm here, to be a leader of the free world, and to kind of deviate from what has been so that we can get back to where it is that we're really supposed to go. And when it came down to it, when I thought about putting myself in Jesus's shoes and having to take on the sins of the world in order to free everybody of this hell that just seems to never end, I became motivated. I became empowered. I looked at that and I thought, damn, like when I'll do even like just physically working out, like if I'm holding the plank and I'm doing, sometimes I have to tap into that source of like, this is what I'm capable of. Now, mind you, there has to still be a level of self-awareness. Like, you don't want to hurt yourself. And that takes time, developing that relationship with your body. And there are methods of how to do that ultimately have been created through just time, through time and space. And that's why there's so much information. I mean, we're in the year 2024. Like, y'all really think that, you would think that we're further along in this department than we are, but we're really not. And that's okay, because this is ultimately where it is that we're supposed to be in history. And I know that a lot of times, a lot of communities try to force their beliefs on other people. That's not something I want to do. I just want to give people something to think about. And I committed my life to Jesus. I recognize Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I recognize Jesus Christ as the vessel that was sent by the Heavenly Father, who was ultimately the end and the beginning. the everything that there is to exist started with Jehovah.
Yeah. Jesus, yeah,
Or
Jesus
yeah.
is your motivation. Same here, literally. And it's crazy because this company name is I Am Dino, and as you see, I have the I am right there. I wake up and I say I am. I say I am Dino, I am blessed, I am strong, I am courageous, I am an African American. I have the number one motivational show in the world. Leave
Come
us with
on.
this. What are affirmations that could define you, or just one affirmation?
All right, so the few affirmations I have for myself are I am limitless, I am timeless, I am eternal and unconditional love.